My name's Mary Knights. I'm the Senior Curator of Art here at the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery. The two works that have been selected for this exhibition from the art collection include this one here. This is a small sculpture by Auguste Rodin, and he's a very well-known sculptor. He's one of the most famous modern sculptors, and he lived mostly in Paris. There's a great studio that he built in Paris that is full of his work. And when he died, in his will, he left a bequest to the French government, which included his studio, which has been made into a museum, but also his models and casts, which are still being developed, because as part of the bequest, he gave permission for copies of many of his works to be produced into the future. As a sculptor, he modelled mostly in clay. He loved the way that with clay you could get a very expressionistic feel to developing figurative work. And he wasn't interested in creating sort of a classical stylized idealism when he created his figurative works. He really wanted to go back to nature and in his figures embody emotion and character, as well as really getting a sense of the natural body, how the muscles and the sinews all sort of, and the skeleton all comes together. And this is a very good example of that work. It's a young woman. It's actually titled Young Woman with Snake. And in her pose, there's a real tension as she's kneeling there. You can get a sense of her being young, vulnerable. It's quite gaunt. There's a real tension, apprehension perhaps, in the way that she's holding her body and embracing the snake. Of course, there's also quite sexual overtones with having a young woman embracing a snake. And it's interesting because in this mould or within this sculpture, when it was bought by TMAG, it was given the original date of being sculpted in 1882 or thereabouts, but it probably was more like 1883, because that's the year Auguste Rodin met Camille Claudel. And she was a young student, 18 years old, fantastic sculptor in her own right. And she and Rodin embarked on a very tumultuous relationship, both professionally. She worked on a lot of his commissions, as well as personally. And there's something very beautiful, also quite sensual about this image. She did, in fact, model for him for many of his works. When the TMAG trustees and director decided to buy this work, it was actually on display in Sydney at the David Jones Gallery. It was one of 50 sculptures, and perhaps they were thinking similarly to how we are today. There's so often been that sort of desire to go to Paris and be surrounded by great art from Europe. And I think perhaps the pandemic has sort of really, while we're much more confident about the great cultural richness here that we have today here in Tasmania and Australia, perhaps there's a similar sentiment to how the trustees were feeling when they were desperate to have a piece of work by Rodin here in the TMAG collection.